Yeah, boys, July 29th, and it's episode 174, and this is a Fantasy Football Auctioneer podcast. The Fantasy Football Auctioneer podcast is the official podcast of thefantasyfootballauction.com, the internet's only website dedicated to fantasy football auctions. We've got a great show for you tonight. Tonight we're going to answer some listener questions, and then we're going to start working into some auction strategy, some of the updates that we're seeing in auction values, and how that relates to maybe some of the news that's going on in training camps. But of course, both analysts, they're actually here tonight. First off, he's probably still recovering. Probably got some cold sweats from detoxing after the golf trip. Blister, how's it going tonight?
It is going great. Pretty quiet day around the Bliss house today. Looking forward to going out fishing tomorrow. But yeah, you're right. The golf trip was fun again. Always ends too soon. Always wish I would have golfed better. And but I think the body's recovered now.
Well, not for me, Blister. Let's see. I started 2 days early. I did take the Sunday off before the trip, and now the brother-in-laws are up at the lake, and it's going to be trouble. Well, it's trouble right now, to be honest with you. I got a koozie in the truck outside the landing, leeching their Wi-Fi so we can run this podcast. So I drove down the donkey path. I'm sitting in the truck, but my view, boys, the view's unbelievable staring out here at Rainy Lake. It's fantastic. Anyways. It is. And he's sitting at home jealous because he's got his feet up on his coffee table, but he does have a blue in his hand. Slim, how's it going tonight?
Miller Lite tonight, boys. So
Miller Lite.
A little less filling here. Trying to watch the LBs.
Well, it's good. At least you'll prove to Ross Tucker, like I talked to him last year, that no one really drinks this stuff. So
well, it still comes out once.
Except for my brother-in-laws, they crushed a suitcase easy before we even hit cards last night. So, anyways, all right. So, yeah, well, exactly. All right, guys. Well, let's just get this thing rolling. So, if you guys are ready, then I'm ready. Let's cock the hammer. It's time for action. So, like I said, we got a good show tonight. We're going to do some listener questions. We're going to roll into some auction strategy. First off, we just want to give a shout out to everyone who's been sending in the mock auction drafts. If you are doing a mock draft or a real draft for that matter, and you want and you're looking for free membership to the website, forward your results to us, and we'll enter your name into a weekly contest. If you forward your results to auctionmockdraft@gmail.com, every time you send the results, we'll put your name in the hat. So you send the results, you put the name in the hat. All right. And this is going to help us get more and more accurate with our auction values. Our auction values aren't based on an algorithm. They're based on actual drafts and mock drafts. The more info we get, the more accurate our average auction values will be on the site. So you send your results to us. Be great if in the subject you put 12-team PPR or something like that, so we have an idea of the league settings. So that helps us when we're putting it into our spreadsheet. But we want to thank everyone for sending out their results. This week's winner, he filled the inbox, Slim. Alex Jerome, thanks so much, and congratulations. I'll be sending you a link either tonight or tomorrow for a free subscription to the auctioneer level on the website. He filled the inbox, eh, Slim?
Yeah, they were coming hot and heavy. I couldn't even keep up to the data. Like, I was updating every couple days, and there was a lot of mocks from this gentleman. So I'd like to thank him. I'd like to thank everybody else. Awesome. But yeah, he absolutely, he gave himself the best chance. I mean, and it was just like the lottery balls and the NBA draft.
Right.
He got the number one pick because of, I guess, all those entries. So that's how she works.
There you go. All right. Good. So thanks, Alex. I'll send you a link for the free subscription. That'll be the third one we've given out, third week in a row here. So keep the entries coming. So that's send your auction results to auctionmockdraft@gmail.com. All right, guys, let's get into some listener questions here. So this segment's called We Just Got a Letter. And then now I'll sing doot, do. Just kidding. I can't put in the sound
We're
bites from
going
the
raw
truck,
and
boys.
uncut tonight. Yep, raw and uncut. No editing.
Awesome. So anyways, we've got a handful of quality questions here. So let's get at her. So the first one here is from @knife45DFS. His question is, he's curious on the process of setting up our tiers. So I did love the Blister, and we love the exercise on the ride home from the golf trip, listening to Slim's premium podcast, walking through the RB tiers. So if you're a member already, make sure you're listening to that podcast, because it's a good 40 minutes or so, I think, Slim, of just how to set up for your running back tiers alone, right?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of picked running back to do first, probably just because with receiver, especially when you get later on, there's just there's the tiers, I think, just kind of blur together a lot more. With running back, it seems like there's a lot more separation at various points, so it just seemed easier to start with that. But yeah,
makes sense.
Yeah, I think it's a position everybody is interested in. It seems like, especially this year, it's
absolutely
going to drive the direction of a lot of budgets and drafts, I think. So it was fun to do.
Makes sense. So Blister, if you're looking at setting up your tiers, what are some of the things that you're doing?
Well, usually what I do when I set up my tiers is I really base them a lot on auction value. I mean, the auction value is tied in with obviously their skill set and their ability. Like, if I look at my number one tier in each one, it's going to be your highest ranked running back or wide receiver, tight end, whatever, because based on, what you think they're going to do. And if people think that, Le'Veon Bell obviously is a stud, then he's going to be in your number one tier. He might be your number one overall running back, something like that. But for me, I always base it on cost. And obviously the dollar guys at the very end are your flyers at the end of your draft or whatever the case may be. But I want to have a feel for, it's all about auction. I want to know who I can get in that price range, and if I can't, what's the next price range look like, basically. And I when I do my tiers, like, that's how I originally break them down. And then what I'll do after that is, if there's guys that I have a kind of like or want, I might take and shade them in a different color, just so those are the guys I know I'm looking forward to. And I don't sit there with like a book worth of notes on them all. It's probably from the research I've done. So I could have read something that makes this guy, more, wanted in my eyes. And then there's guys that I don't want, no matter what, even if it's a good deal. So I might go through and put like a red line through them, or shade them in red, just so I just know I don't want those guys, because what I've read somewhere, or what I know, or what my feeling is on these guys, or the situation they're in. And so that way I can make sure, no matter what happens or how long into the draft, I'm not going to go, oh, this guy's still in tier 2, but I don't like him, so I'm not going to spend my money on him. And the last thing I do with my tiers for my draft itself is I'll put on the strength of schedule on my tiers, like underneath, where, under tier 1 and 2, 3, 4, obviously they're not long. So there's lots of room still to add a strength of schedule in underneath there. Then if I'm comparing a couple guys in a tier or something, I can basically say, well, I'm going to go with this guy because, or I'm going to spend a little more on this guy because his schedule is better, and the other guy that's left has a really rotten schedule, say, for example, at running back. So that's basically what I do. It's all based on price. Obviously, within that price, the most expensive guys are your top studs who are going to get the most yards, most touchdowns, et cetera, et cetera. And then it's also that during the draft, I can budget and have a feel for what I can afford. And if I miss out on this guy, who's next tier down, how much is it going to cost me, and where then should I allocate some of that extra money I'm going to save if I missed out on a $50 running back or something.
Right. So, hey, Blister, when you do your strength of schedule on those sheets, like you bring these sheets right into the draft, right?
Yeah, that's probably about all I will bring in there.
Mm-hmm.
And then the strength of schedule that's sitting under, let's say, the your RB tiers, is that your RB strength of schedule, or is that just like an overall for that team?
No, I'll do it for each position, like each position, the quarterback strength of schedule, the running back one, the wide receiver, and the tight end. Yeah. I like that little
there you
extra.
go. So that makes for your tie break. Okay.
I thought that's a good
for sure
little extra tidbit that I've never put it on, but I like the idea as like a tiebreaker, because that's kind of what you're doing with tiers, is you're grouping like players. And when it comes time in a draft to say, you know, I got this guy and this guy, what separates? I mean, sometimes it is something as little as a bye week or a strength of schedule or something that might just say, you know what, all things considered, they're even, but this guy has the slight edge right here. I'm going to go this way. So I like that idea. I think that's something important everybody should be doing. So.
Yeah, for sure. I like that too. I'm just trying to, in my head, trying to figure out what that looks like on my sheets and how I could pencil that in, or if I could code it or something like that. No, I like that. So what are some things you're doing when you're setting up your tiers?
Well, I was actually I wanted to hear your guys' thoughts on this, because I think a lot of people do it differently. And I even I know I do it obviously different than Blister, because I set mine up on what I guess project for fantasy output. So I try and say I do running backs. I try and say, okay, how many guys project to score, depending on league scoring, whatever, say 300 plus points. And those guys might go in my tier 1. Then between 270 and 300 points, that would be my tier 2 or whatever, etc. And work my way down.
Right. Yeah.
Noting the value, obviously. And kind of once I'm happy with where everybody's sitting, I start to look through each tier. And just like Blister said, maybe I color code guys I like more or less. I'm looking for an outlier, either, you know, one way or the other. Whether and usually it's based on value at this point. I'm cross-referencing now the auction values and saying, well, who's in these high tiers that is cheap? And those will be guys I gravitate to automatically, because I think that those will be values. And conversely, who's in some of these mid tiers that I think or even higher tiers that I think are overpriced. And those will be guys that if I had to order them in that tier, I would probably want to be picking last, just because if I can get equal production for cheaper, then why would I not do that? So that's kind of how I do it. When I did that podcast, just for the sake of ease of doing it, and for a reference that everybody could use that was subscribing our auction values, I thought, it's pretty easy just to pull them right off based on AAV. And I really don't think it matters, honestly. Yeah. I kind of thought about it. It doesn't, I don't think, matter what criteria you're using to sort the players, as long as it's even amongst all the players, something that applies to everybody, and auction value does. And then again, you're just looking for the outliers, whether it's who's in this tier. And Blister probably does it kind of the exact opposite of me. He puts his prices together and looks at, okay, who do I project in my mind based on the data I have to score the least amount of points in this group? And those are probably the players that he says, yeah, you know what? I don't like that guy. I'm not going to buy him in that tier. And this guy projects, to score a ton of fantasy points in this tier. I want that guy. So, I don't think, like I said, there's a lot of different ways I think you can do it. And I think you can be successful doing them just about any way.
Right. Well, and I just started the exercise myself at the lake this weekend. And I just pulled out a list of running backs and took out a piece of paper while I had a little notebook going and just wrote out the top 36 running backs just in my order, right? And so I created my ranking order, and then without auction values or anything, I didn't have our data with us. I'm just sitting on the deck, and I just start putting lines like this is a break and this is a break and this is a break based on more like, I mean, I guess it's all that, right? Where we know what the auction values kind of are, and we know what the projections kind of are, and then you kind of know where your gut is too. And I'm kind of that way when I'm drafting, is a lot of gut type stuff based on everything else that I've learned around it, and then get that feel for I like this guy, and I'd rather have these 5 guys than these 5 guys. Boom, that's the tier. And then from there, I've already got my ranking within that tier. But you're right, when I go into a draft, there are definitely guys in that tier, just like Blister said too, that I'm just not going to draft. Like, they're just not going to, if that's the only guy left, I didn't do it right, because like, as a question coming up later on. I didn't follow the auction U properly, so I didn't do it right if he's the only guy left in that tier, and I'm going to now reevaluate my team construction. But two, I'm just not going to take that guy, and I'll just move on. So there's always some of those guys in each tier, and sometimes I'll put them as an asterisk, or not, maybe like an italics or something on my cheat sheet that I bring in. But sometimes I won't, and that's because we put it on the website. So I don't know if the last guy that just bought the membership used his wife's email address and changed his name and now he has my sheets at the draft, right?
Right.
So I might at the draft put the little stars beside it. Actually, Blister and I, we were laughing. We wanted to listen to you break down your running back tiers so that we could use it to our advantage when we were drafting. So Blister like, shh, be quiet. I want to hear how he does this. So
I was listening to a pod and somebody said that they're like, you know what? What's the like if you're taking the time to go like do a podcast and everything, who cares? Go ahead, come at me.
Yeah.
Like,
oh yeah. Yeah. You know
what I mean? Like,
yeah, exactly.
And I you know, and that's something that I think we've all talked about this. We have our home leagues and things with friends, and clearly, if those guys want, they know where they can get, and some of them do. They can find out players that we're higher on than most, and I'm sure we use it against each other. Like, I know, Bex, I'm not going to let you get Darius Geis for as cheap as you think you're going to get him in any drafts this year. That's how we roll, right? Like, so but yeah, I mean, for sure.
Yeah, I can hear it right now. I can hear it right now on that weekend. It's going to be 17. 19. You're just going to just one more with that calm and a little smirk on your face. I can just see it.
Wow, shit. It always seems to happen on one of the drafts that we're all in together. I feel like it was Keenan Allen a couple of years ago with Lister and I don't know. It's always someone. But But I go back to your point, Bucks. You mentioned
so that's kind of our go.
Like, even if you just rank all your players, just make a ranking. Go through, and if you look at that, your gut, or whatever you want to call it, your intuition, something is going to tell you. Like, I know for me, I look at the top 5 running backs, and I'd take any of those guys as my RB1. I got no problem. Like, all things being equal, price, whatever, I would take any of those guys. Once you get past that, my brain starts saying, I got questions about this guy, and they might be nitpicky type things, but now it's just like my gut is telling me I am not as confident in this next group as I was in the group before. And same thing when I get about RB10, I start getting more questions about the next group. And it just makes these kind of natural kind of tier breaks for me in my rankings. And I think most people, if you just go through that exercise, and I'll be honest, rankings are a tedious bitch to do. Like, I'll be honest, I hate doing them. They suck to always update. But if you're just doing this on your own and you need to do it one time, then it's not that bad. You go through, find a list of guys, jot them down quick. You don't have to spend hours tweaking or anything. It's just giving you this rough idea. And I think you'll see a lot before you even go to make a tier. You'll have an idea by doing something like that, what your tiers are going to be before you even sit down to even do them.
Yeah. And I think it's easy to look at someone else's rankings and going, oh yeah, no, that's about right. And then when you write them down, you go, oh, you know what? I forgot about this guy. No, I would actually move him up here. And it's easy to read it and think, yeah, that's the right rankings. And that was what I was doing. I had that wonderful magazine, Blister.
Yeah.
And I went through their rankings, and first, unbelievable. The rankings were unbelievable. But anyways, Slim, they actually had like a deep sleepers Wayne Gallman this year.
Well, that's deep.
Wow.
That's deep, though.
Yeah. It is deep. It is deep. But a guy you should have on your radar. You might not even have him on the Giants, but you should pick him on your
league
fantasy team. Anyways,
maybe about last year's magazine.
Exactly.
Maybe about last year's.
Yeah, well, no, it wasn't. But I should pull it last year's too. I have that up here. But but I noticed that as I was going through their rankings, because it was quite lopsided, like quite different from what my rankings would be. I was like, oh yeah, Carlos Hyde, because they, you know what I mean. When I was down in that 20s, where maybe I would have him, they had him at 6, and I didn't even think of where he slots in. And I'm like, oh yeah, I'm making those numbers up, by the way. But I mean, it was all those numbers are all coming in right around the rookie draft and whatever, So you'll find that you read the rankings, you go, oh yeah, I know that's good. And then when you actually write them on paper or type them up on the spreadsheet or whatever it is, you'll find that you're, would I take this guy over that guy? Yeah, no, I wouldn't. I wouldn't take him over this guy either, or this guy. Oh, well, he's all of a sudden my RB12.
Yep, for sure.
So anyways, and then when I do my tiers, I mean, then you guys do it too. I purposely try to squeak them all into 2 pieces of paper, so that I just have 2 pieces of paper at the draft. I color code them based on the tiers so they stand out and they pop. I leave a little bit of space beside each guy so I can write in the dollar value that they went for.
Right.
When they were sold, so that I can, as we'll move into the next question, look at the auction U and try to find some of those sweet spots. And then I bring 1 scrap piece of paper with me that I have my my plan A, plan B, plan C type of thing on there. And then I just use that piece of paper going back and forth. I'll take $5 from here and put it over there and all of that. So that's basically what my tiers and what I do from there.
Beauty.
Anything else to add, guys, about creating tiers?
Sounds pretty extensive. That's good.
Okay. Yeah, it was pretty. It's actually like, we could do a whole pod on that. Well, I guess Slim did. Anyways, all right. Question number 2 at Shelfler. I don't know. I can hardly see it on my phone here in the truck. 15. He's asking, and it moves into what we were just starting to get into, is what's the best way to set up in a live draft to use the auction U? So, Blister, what do you think? You're in a live draft. How do you utilize this?
Well, I think you have to be on top of everything and keeping track of how many guys have gone. Obviously, in each tier, you can only nominate 1 guy every 12. So you have no control. Like if you notice a couple running backs are off the board and it's getting to the bottom of that U and you really want to get somebody up there, but you don't nominate for 8 guys, and or you think by the time it comes around to you, you might be at the bottom of the U, but then all of a sudden a tight end and 2 quarterbacks and 3 receivers and a kicker have been nominated, then you're still not near the bottom of that auction U. So it's a really tough thing to pin. I think if you're paying attention to what's going on, and like if we use the RB1s as a great example, there could be 8 to 10 guys there that could go for over $50, but those first couple guys that go are probably going to go for 65 plus, and the last 2 guys that are not tier are probably going to they might go for easily over $65 because that's when people start to panic. So if you can get in there when there's about 4 or 5 guys gone, and it's coming up to you, and you had thought, well, I'm going to nominate Antonio Brown next because people don't have receivers. Well, maybe you jump that plan and go to your running back 1 that you kind of had, kind of wanted on your team because it might be the best chance to get him at a bit of a discount. So that's probably about the only way I can see you can manipulate it.
Yeah, so using the nomination. Slim, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how you can manipulate it like yourself to say control it. It just kind of, it's something that is gonna happen on its own. And all I can say, the best thing to kind of go back to what we were talking about before, is have the players all tiered. If you have them in tiers, you can see, because usually the U kind of blends between one. It's either going to be one really big tier or a fairly big tier with like 6 to 8 players, or it's going to be kind of 2 tiers put together. Maybe your RB2 and 3 this year, we'll say. And for me, that kind of goes RB6 to RB. Shoot, I don't have it pulled up right in front of me, but something like RB13 or RB14. So I think it's RB14. So those, I could see it in those 2 tiers. Again, I think with running back, it's going to be, the big guys are going to be expensive. And then you start getting into the middle, whoever gets nominated kind of next after, you get Zeke, Bell, Gurley, and DJ off the board. To some extent, even Kamara might fall in there. Saquon seems to be climbing up closer. I saw a mock just today, actually, that he went for like the same price as David Johnson. They were both $64. So,
Right.
I mean, some drafts are just going to be personal preference, but as a whole, I think what's going to happen is the vast majority of drafters this year seem to want one of those elite running backs. So when you get a handful already gone, and especially once those first 4 are gone, that everybody kind of has as their chalk top 4 or top 5, say with Kamara in there, then some people just kind of tend to relax a little bit. Okay, you know what? I can't get any of those guys now. That's fine. I'll just take one of these guys from my next tier. So, somebody gets nominated and maybe it's not a guy you really like. Maybe Dalvin Cook is nominated next and he's kind of lower down a little bit in your rankings. And you think, you know what? There's a couple guys I still have ranked ahead of him. I'll go with those guys. And all of a sudden, it's whittled down and there's maybe 2 guys left that you have in your top 10. And at the same time, there's probably 4 other guys in your draft that are thinking the same thing. Because, I mean, in a 8 running backs taken in a 12-team league, that means 4 of you probably don't have an RB1 still. So now this is how these bidding wars get started at the end of these tiers, where you've got 4 guys that all want the same position, not even necessarily the same player. They just all want one of these top RB1s. And the perfect storm is brewed up where everybody has the same couple players ranked as the bottom of that group. And now people are fighting tooth and nail to try and get one of those guys because they see a considerable drop off to that next tier. And that's the other thing. When you look at your tiers, do you see a big break? Sometimes you can between one tier to the next, where it's a fairly big price change, or just in general comfortability. Maybe like all of a sudden you don't want any of these guys as your wide receiver 2. These are all guys you want as flexes or wide receiver 3s at best. You don't want to even start any of these guys. Chances are other people in your draft are thinking the same thing. So this is where you can get that upbidding, that uptick in the auction, the U part of that draft, the back end of the U, where people start trying to pay up to get these guys just because it's a necessity now at this point. So if you have your tiers and you're keeping track of who's left in a tier, like I never want to get left, for example, if we go back to the running back example, I don't want 2 running backs left out of my top 2 tiers and I still don't have one, if that's the plan that I went into the draft going in with. Because I know that I'm kind of put my back up against the wall where if somebody else wants this guy, now I have a tough choice to make. Do I pay, or do I get into this bidding war, or do I just back off and probably start somebody at RB1 that I was not happy with and did not even consider going into this draft? So trying to be predictive, but like Blister said, it's sometimes there's not a lot of control when you only nominate once every 12 guys. So it's you got to be on your toes.
Well, and for me, I can only add to it. Make sure you're writing down on your sheet or on your, you're typing into your spreadsheet or whatever, where all the guys are going so that right? That's, the first thing. Don't just trust it to being up on the board or whatever. Have it in front of you so that you know what's going on. Because if you're not following along, you're going to get lost, and then you're going to get, like Slim said, you're back up against the wall and you're going to have to go. And then number 2, and I'm terrible for this, but don't be afraid to spend the, $2 extra above what you have him as a value on your sheet. If he's in that middle tier, in the middle of that tier, especially because you could end up spending 7 or 8 more bucks on him on the next guy down your list in a half hour if you don't pull the trigger now. So those are, I guess, just the 2 things that I would add to that.
Yeah. Especially this year. That's a good point.
Yeah.
Because I think there's going to be tons of values later in drafts that you won't miss those couple extra bucks as much this year as you would in other years.
Right. And I think you're going to have to, from the look of the average auction values, if you're going to you want a top guy, you're going to have to spend the bucks.
Yep. We'll get to that later too.
So absolutely. Anything else, Blister? Do you want to add anything to Auction U? Guess not.
Muted. Must be muted.
Oh, okay. Is he talking? Oh, must be talking to Mrs.
Oh.
Blister. All right.
Guess I had it muted there. I guess. Sorry, I had so many screens open up. But no more to add with the auction. Some of the comments Slim made are going to tie in nicely to that next question because I was thinking about that one.
There you go.
Okay. All right, so let's move into the next question there, and we'll start with you, Blister. So at Compton Pipes or Pips, Compton Pips, he is asking. He's got a 12-team keeper. We got lots of keeper questions going on lately, guys. 12-team keeper is $31 too much to keep mixing. Blister, what do you think? We were just having this conversation in a team we own together.
Yeah, I don't think it's too much. A couple of reasons. One, in a keeper league, the guys that are kept, often people are getting a value on. They're keeping them at a good deal or a good value, so they got a little extra money. Like, for example, if they drafted Alvin Kamara in a rookie draft, and they might have got him for a couple bucks or something cheap, and so all of a sudden he's a player that's going for $60 now. They got a little bit more money. So often, what happens if the guys that are left over are a little more expensive than they would be in a non-keeper league. So first of all, even though right now we have Joe Mixon ranked in about $25, the average auction value, which is quite a good deal, and 31 is a little bit more. What I was finding today and what I found recently when mocking is a lot of these guys, like Slim mentioned, these top 10 running backs perhaps are going for over $50, $60. So I was one of the people today in my mock. I thought, well, you know what? I want to let them go. I want to start my team with something like maybe Jordan Howard and Joe Mixon. Well, if you got more than one person doing that, all of a sudden they don't want to, when I look at those tiers and take off the top 10 and then you get Howard and say Mixon in there, after that, you're not thrilled probably with maybe having him as your starting running back, but after you're okay with it, I guess you could say. But after that, if you're looking at Collins or Drake or, a rookie that you're not sure what they're going to do, or Marlon Mack, I mean, wow, that doesn't leave you with a lot of confidence as those are your starting running backs. So what happened in the mock I was in today? Yeah, there's about 10 guys that went for over 60. And then I don't know, those guys might have been thinking, I'm going to spend 60 or 65 on my number one. I'll take Howard or Mixon as my number two. So not only are you fighting with, maybe 6 guys that want them as their number 2 running back, where they feel pretty good with the upside, or you might be fighting with 3 other guys in your league that don't even have a starting running back because they didn't want to spend 55 plus on a running back. So yeah, probably 31 might be a little bit more accurate as to what he goes for come the end of August. This is the way things are going in auctions right now. So no, I would be fine with spending 31 on to keep him.
Well, and Slim, if you can keep, let's say, Mixon for 31 and you can keep him for the next 5 years, maybe you're saving yourself 30 to $35 over the next 5 or 6 years because you took him at 30.
Yeah, I guess maybe. I don't know.
Do you know what I mean? I don't know, like if he's a guy who with that potential, but
yeah, no, I mean, I look at keepers almost like redraft though. So like, I'm not really concerned with anything really more than this year, because most of these keeper leagues, you're only keeping 2-3 guys. Like, you don't really have to really consider there's going to be a lot of good players in the talent pool to draft every year as well. So like, I mean, but to Blister's point, I don't think the price is bad. I mean, to me, it's pretty much on par with what he should be going for. So, I mean, a lot depends on what else would be out there. Like, maybe you just shed him altogether, knowing that you can go and hopefully pay up to get David Johnson because he's been left available or something like that. So, but yeah, I mean, for the sake of the question, I don't think the price is that bad. So if that's your best case scenario is to keep him at that, then by all means, I wouldn't feel bad about doing that.
Well, if we want to look at it as far as like what our sheets say too, right? He's our consensus 14. He's going for about $25, but RB 14 is going for about 33. So if you're high on him like we are, right, then yeah, it's right on point, really.
Exactly.
Especially like considering, and I like that point Blister makes too, right? That some guys will have some more cash to spend than they typically would. They've had Devontae Adams for $1 for the last couple of years, and
well, that's it.
So
right?
they're not afraid to spend up, right? So
that's a great point. And keepers, when you go into the draft, and this is what I think we all tell guys that, because we get a ton of email questions about keepers. I I'm blown away every year
Yeah.
by how many people play and send us questions. But that's the one thing I found in keeper leagues is the players, when you go to draft them, they're gonna go for more because, like Blister said, there's just people that already have 3 studs on their bench for probably next to nothing in some cases, so they can afford to just go and pay up to get other studs. So those top tier guys
Yeah.
are gonna go for more than what you think they are most cases.
Absolutely. All right. Well, another keeper question, guys. Let's keep moving. So this one is at Boone Nest CMN. So he's got a $200 budget, 12-team PPR. So he's got a couple questions on who he should keep. So it's Deshaun Watson for 15, Gronk for 32, or Zeke for 51. I'm guessing, Blister, we're just keeping one here. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, out of them all, I would keep Zeke for 51. It's probably cheaper than you're going to get him. He's going to be challenging for the RB1 spot, I think, this year. I mean, Watson, they're both great players, Watson and Gronk, right? But Watson, $15, I think that you could get him cheaper. I think that if you don't get him back, there's probably a lot of quarterbacks in your league that will put up good points. Like Matt Stafford is always overlooked, and Cousins might not be, but Rivers is always overlooked. I think he'll have a good year. There's a lot of these guys. Mariota could be in for maybe his best year. Got to watch how Mahomes develops. Winston's going to be suspended for a little bit, and he's going to come back and have the easiest strength of schedule. So there's lots of quarterbacks out there. I never spend that much on a starting quarterback. And then Gronk, obviously, he's going to be one of your top 3 tight ends should he stay on the field and stay healthy. But I think I've said it a million times now, I feel a lot more comfortable piecing together my tight ends over the course of the year than I do trying to replace stud wide receivers or stud running backs and stuff like that. So if you had to keep one, it's going to be Zeke for me. Gronk will probably go somewhere around that $30 range in your auction draft, but I'm probably never going to have him on my team because I don't want to pay that much at tight end.
Yeah. And so what do you think? Like, I mean, Deshaun Watson, that's what he's going for right now anyways, so you're not really saving any money unless this is some type of super flex league or something. And then Gronk, same thing. That's what he's going for, so there's no value there either. But who do you think he should keep?
Zeke, hands down. And I wouldn't keep the other 2 guys. I mean, in a keeper, I look at quarterback and tight end. Those are almost like luxury positions. And I don't want to spend on them, like Blister was saying, unless I've done so well, like my core is already set and it's cheap and I've got extra money that I can just like play with. Like if we had a question today come from one of the guys, he's been a listener for us for a couple of years. We've chatted on Twitter, and he sent me his roster and he asked about keeping Aaron Rodgers or going and buying Aaron Rodgers and Gronk in the draft. Well, because he had, I think he had like Gurley. He drafted Saquon and Geis in the draft. He already had Gurley and Mixon.
Yeah.
And then he had Keenan Allen and Michael Thomas as his receivers. And I said, well,
right. Well, then
normally I'd say probably not go get those guys, but like you have your whole starting lineup is set with a cheap player, and Gurley, I can't remember, all their prices were ridiculous, and Saquon and Geis were free because they were just drafted. They were like $1. So
okay. Yeah.
I was like, I guess like on paper, when you do that, I find I'd be hard pressed for you to show me another team in that league that can compete with that. So in that instance, when you have the core of your roster already set and cheap, then I guess go spend on those guys. But for this, I would just say keep Zeke, move on. And like Blister said, go get a cheap quarterback, go get a cheaper tight end, and save some money.
Well, and what jumped out to me in this question, guys, is that it's a keeper league, so it must be what you paid for him last year. You paid 15 last year?
I don't know. Not
It's a
sure.
lot.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
That would have been a lot for a rookie quarterback that was behind Tom Savage.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
My thought, anyways. But maybe there's like, okay, you keep them and you add $10 or I don't know. Maybe there's like keepers got all those funny rules, right? But Anyways, okay.
Yep.
Well, okay, so hopefully that answers those two keeper questions. Let's move on to yet another question here. This is from @BeardedGinger13, which I love that name. My league tends to value studs. That's just, I guess, a comment. So he's got a $200 budget, and almost everyone spends at least $65 on at least one player. So should he join in, or should he hold steady and pick apart the values later on? Blister, what do you think?
Well, that's tough. I would rather, if I would know this a little bit more about the league, like the scoring and things like that. For example, our auction last year was a good example. Was it last year? The first year we changed it to half PPR and a quarter point per carry.
Super flex, multi-flex.
So just with that change in scoring, all of a sudden, it really made those running backs a little bit more valuable, and it kind of devalued a bit of the receiving in a sense. So it made me allot my money differently, and I really did want to have a stud running back. And so I did spend a little bit more than I probably normally would have to get a good running back. And but I was looking for a place where I really thought, like last year, I thought Hopkins was going to be a great value because I knew he had the talent the year before he had a down year. So I think I ended up getting him for like $35. So he was my leading receiver and was the best receiver in the league. So that was a good grab, but it's tough to, it's tough to say it all depends on the scoring. If it's a PPR league, a full PPR league, I'd really want one of those top receivers if I could get them, like Antonio Brown or Hopkins or Keenan Allen, Devontae Adams, somebody. I'd want to have one of them to start my team with. I've started my team before with all the great values, and it just doesn't leave you satisfied. You're always thinking, oh, if I had one guy that could anchor this receiving core, one running back, and I could piece together the other ones from week to week or waiver wires and this and that. You kind of want that, but it all depends on the scoring to me.
Sure. Well, that makes total sense. Slim, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it's such a tough question without knowing, like Blister said, a lot of the context. I mean, I look at it like, just because I can do something, like I can pass on all these guys and grab the value later. I don't know if it means you should do it. I mean, I know that I could skip on one of these RBs that are going like the top 10 to 12 running backs, but if I know there's going to be a bunch of really cheap guys later, do I really need to skip on them then? Like, if everybody's going for $65 and more, and this is a good tip, I think everybody should be at their draft when a player gets bought, you should be writing what the price differential was for what you expected it to be. And it's super easy to do. Like, you can tell this in like 2 or 3 rounds. If you're getting a positive number after 2, 3, 4 rounds, meaning owners are spending more money than you think they should be, that means that there's going to be values coming later. And the more money that they're spending, the quicker those values come. And in a case like this, I think that there's probably going to be a ton of values coming in the draft. So if I know that, I mean, what's the point of me having $20 budgeted for a wide receiver 3, for example, when I know that I could still get an awesome wide receiver 3 for $3? Like Blister said, I might as well spend some of my budget on one of these top guys, even though I know they're going to be expensive. It doesn't mean you go out and pay $80 for Gurley. You don't need the best guy, but you want somebody you feel comfortable with as, an RB1 or maybe a wide receiver 1. So it's kind of a fine line. Like, I'm not saying go and spend like crazy and then have 3 studs and then $1 for everything else. I mean, I would never advocate for that either, but again, just kind of doing your homework and trying to be somewhat predictive, you should be able to see a couple little nice spots to pick a more expensive player, but without breaking the bank and crippling your budget elsewhere, if that makes sense. Right.
And I mean, if I look at the auction values really right now, especially at running back, and like we'll get into it, spend $65 for your RB1 is going to be the norm right now if you're drafting. And then really you're only spending a few more bucks at your wide receiver 1 if you're going to go up to 65 that way. And that was the point I was going to get to too, if you weren't going to, is that that means that everyone's going to have deals later on because more money was spent at the beginning. So,
well, I like to go back, I guess, to explain it better. Like if I think of it like redraft, if I knew, say, in round 8, there was a whole bunch of players that project to go in round 8 that I really like, and I think that are going to outperform that value all the time. That doesn't mean you would punt your first and second round picks to say, well, you know what? I'm just going to pick a bunch of guys in round 8. Well, no, you'd never do that. I mean, first, it's maybe impossible in a snake draft, but I mean, you're still going to pick a guy in the first round, even though you know those values are going to be there in those later rounds. So, like, I don't think the prices need to, necessarily scare you off. Just try and pick your spots a little bit better. That's all.
Yeah, that's good. So that's good stuff. So that's Bearded Ginger 13. That about wraps up the Twitter questions there, guys, or the listener questions. So we just wanted to just touch up here before we end the pod. So you just updated some auction values, right? And you're noticing some things and some trends that are going on right now in either mocks or real drafts, and really affecting some of the prices that are going out there. Why don't you tell everybody what you're seeing right now?
Well, kind of over the last week, what I've seen is running backs top end. And I mean, we knew that Gurley, Bell, those guys were expensive. But what I'm starting to see now in a lot of the mock draft data that's coming in, well, like we have 10 running backs that are going for $50 or more. And in some of the more recent ones, like I said, Saquon Barkley went for over 60 in the mid 60s. Melvin Gordon in one of them I saw today was $60. It's just getting to be like those top 10 guys the prices are getting up there, and they seem to be climbing every couple days when I check the data. And then there's a considerable tier break, but even a guy like Devontae Freeman, who is kind of typically just outside of that top 10. His price has climbed in the last week. He's now $40, whereas about a week ago he was probably about 37. So it's just this slow climb of these top end running backs. And if anybody checks out our auction values, you'll notice when you start getting to about that 12 range and down, you see a lot of green. And to me, what that tells me is that middle, that kind of RB2, that whole RB2 tier, if you want to call it, kind of RB12 to RB20, a lot of value to be found in that region. So again, that should maybe even make you feel good. Like, hey, I can go and spend to get one of these top guys, knowing there's a lot of value to be had coming up later. And I've been surprised. I guess I knew running backs were going to be expensive. I guess myself, I didn't think they would quite get to the heights that they're getting at. And I think they're only going to climb. I mean, just wait till preseason starts and we get more training camp videos on Twitter of Saquon Barkley doing this and Dalvin Cook doing this. And, it's the prices are going to go up.
Yeah, absolutely. Was there anything you're noticing right now as far as trends with auction values?
No, nothing really different than what Slim just said. Like, yeah, the running backs are super expensive. It kind of, earlier on when I was mocking, I was trying to go after one or two really good running backs. And then now it's gotten to the point where they're so friggin' expensive that I've really had to change my my strategy. And today, like, I don't think I would be very happy starting with Joe Mixon and Alex Collins as my 1 and 2. I mean, they have the potential to finish as a top 10 or top 12, but I think the difference in what they do and what Gurley or David Johnson does is going to be quite significant. And you're still probably going to spend $60 on those two guys, or Collins might get a little cheaper, but I'd say Mixon will probably end up could be going for about 35, and Collins could approach 25 because people, there's so much question marks after that, and a lot of guys might be thinking that they'll get one stud, like I said earlier, and one of those guys is their RB2, or other guys may be thinking they're going to start their team there, because after that it kind of just drops off. So it's gonna be I don't feel as prepared today as I did a month ago.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, or even a couple weeks ago, you're fired right up. But Blister, seeing these, the change in some of these running back values, let's say, is that, I mean, do anything to your nomination strategies early in a draft to try to take advantage of value somewhere?
I think right now is people, because they know that all these running backs are there and they're quite expensive. I'm thinking that if you threw out a tight end or a receiver, something that you kind of wanted earlier on, maybe not the very first receiver, maybe not even the first 3 receivers nominated, but say it started off with a couple of running backs and then all of a sudden it went a few receivers. I think you might actually get a little bit of a break on the price because people are knowing that they got to have so much money left for their running backs because they're all so expensive. And if they're doing any mock drafting or prep work like that, they might know, well, my RB1's costing me $60 or $65. So they might hold off a bit on receiver. So it could work that way.
Or I was going to say
anything, sorry, I was Slim Go. Yeah.
Yeah. It's maybe you make the choice to, forego those top 5, we'll say the Kamara and higher. Those guys that kind of, right now they're 60 and above, all 5 of those guys, and guys like Barkley and Gordon are, getting into the mid 50s, and Saquon's maybe a little higher than that. But maybe you decided, you know what, I'm not going to go for one of those top 5 guys. I'll take somebody from that RB, call it the RB2 tier with Saquon, Cook, Gordon, Hunt, and Fournette. Maybe, if you're nominating first or second or something, maybe you toss out one of those guys. You know what? Screw it. I'm going to go because that the majority of your draft is probably sitting there with RB1 on their budget with, say, $60 or something on that. And they're all waiting. I want Gurley. Or they're thinking, you know what? I got $65 budgeted for this. I can go and get any running back I want. Fuck, why would I spend money on Dalvin Cook right now? I'm saving it for Gurley. Like, I got enough to go get him. So maybe you can get him for a little bit less, or even you go a little bit later and you throw out a guy like Joe Mixon right away. Or Alex Collins or somebody in that whole RB2 kind of group, and just see what the draft does. I mean, if you don't get them, you don't get them, but because there is so many values there, it's not that big a deal. If you're going on value, you can probably look at a handful of other guys there and say, yeah, I'm happy taking some other ones, but and maybe you get them for cheap because everybody's geared up to go guns a-blazing for these RB1s that get thrown out, and they're just waiting for that to happen. And they don't want to sit back and overspend for their RB2, having to take money away from something like that, that limits what they can do at RB1. So
right.
It kind of ties in what Blister said. I mean, maybe you nominate somebody you like at a position other than the one that is going to go ape shit in terms of price, and hope that you can get a little bit of a discount.
Yeah, I like that, guys, because I think that's, it gets away from the auction you and that sort of idea, but it's taking advantage of that nomination, right? Where so many guys are just like, oh, I'll just nominate the next guy. It's being ahead of the curve in your league. I like both of those suggestions, going to the next tier of RB, or like Blister said, like maybe it's Doug Baldwin you throw out and you save $4 or $5 on Doug Baldwin, and he becomes a steal of the draft. You got $5 more, and you can pay up for Kamara because you saved a bit of cash. I like both those ideas.
Yeah, Baldwin would be a good one. Baldwin,
it's awesome, boys. Yeah. This is why we do the podcast.
That's right. Let's draft. God, I'm fat.
What's that?
God, I'm fat. I'm just sitting here wishing I had a liposuction machine. Ay. That's off topic. Sorry. Here we go.
Yeah, well, I mean, barley sandwiches will do that to you, Blister.
Yeah. Damn it.
So, okay. So, I mean, training camps are kind of, rolling, and holdouts, and no, I'll go back, or, I need to get my. face during a camp, and doing a series on me when really I'm not feeling overly confident in my mental health. Those things are all happening right now. Slim, anything that you see as far as training camp news going on that's troubling you, that is getting you excited, those types of things?
I guess some of the things that have jumped out would be the in New York and with the Jets, you got McGuire hurting his foot. Not that he was ever going to be a big thing, but you know, a guy like Isaiah Crowell maybe becomes a late round target more so than maybe he was before. If McGuire misses some time here, like I've seen 3 to 6 weeks, but I've also seen that there isn't really a timetable yet for when he would come back for something like that. Sounds like they had Alfred Morrison, but they couldn't come to an agreement. So who knows what's going to happen there. But I mean, I think this just means more touches for a guy like Isaiah Crowell. I can say, like, I'm going to watch a player like DJ Moore a little more closely based on what I've seen. A couple little videos that were put out on Twitter, and those videos are dangerous as shit because they show a nice little highlight and it's just like, they get me. I'm watching him just shake a corner and, you know, I think, oh man, if he can just work on his timing with Newton, he could be sick. This whole news with the Seattle backfield, it was something I talked about in the RB podcast with some of these rookie running backs. If you can get coaches that are pumping the tires of the veterans that are on the team, even though you projected the rookies to probably take the lion's share of carries, and hopefully it drives the price down of some of those guys. And I'm going to monitor something like that and see what it does to, you know, Penny's price. Royce Freeman was another guy, although Roto-World put out a blurb today about how, sorry, it wasn't Roto-World, it was one of the beat writers, I think, in Denver, about how he looked all the part of this 3-down running back and everything and stuff like that. So, yeah, lots of stuff. I'll save the Taywan Taylor talk for Blister. I'm sure he was excited about that. And but guys like Anthony Miller looking good. Traquan Smith has looked awesome, which sucks because I was a Cameron Meredith supporter, and if Traquan looks, you know, the part, then does he push him to the curb a little bit, or they cannibalize each other? Is there a third running? I'm hoping there's a third wide receiver to hopefully own in New Orleans, but I don't know who that's going to be right now. So yeah, a few things. Vance McDonald, foot injury. He was a popular late cheap tight end. I think I had him in my $1 buys podcast as part of the series. So that one could hurt depending on what the outcome is there.
What about you, Blister? Anything outside of Taiwan that?
Yeah. You know what? Just one little article I was reading here about Eli Manning actually looking good at camp. And, you know, that is he's going to have to look good at camp. He's going to have to be good this year, for all those awesome offensive weapons they have. If he can't get them the ball, then they're not going to be all that awesome. So, you know, I hope that there's more things like that coming, because otherwise those guys all scare me, just because if the quarterback isn't capable of performing, then you have very little chance of performing either. But there's a lot of comments on here. Jamison Crowder, another one. I think he is in a perfect spot, because Alex Smith really can throw that short pass, and those slants and things like that. And then Crowder excels at that. He's a guy that's going to go so late and so cheap in your auction. And he could easily, I mean, if you have him as your wide receiver 3, you're going to be thrilled, I think, because I think he'll put up wide receiver 2 like numbers more often than not. So I think he's, you know, I know Slim is on Slim's radar for sure. And that'll be a one to see. Another tight end in San Diego tore an ACL. He's out for the year. Austin Roberts, and I know there's rumblings they're trying to sign Antonio Gates. And you know, I mean, I even made a play for him in our dynasty. What do you offer for a guy that's 100 years old and probably doesn't even want to be in training camp?
Not even signed yet.
Aged, and is he going to be eluding very many guys at this point in time. Again, he's got great chemistry with Philip Rivers. I think you got to keep an eye on that. And if you're drafting, you can pick him up for $1 and hope that works out for you. But, you know, a lot of this stuff, you just kind of keep listening, and those injuries are the big things, because all of a sudden somebody gets injured and they're missing out on valuable training camp time, getting chemistry with the quarterback and getting all the rhythm and timing of all the plays down. And then all of a sudden somebody else can step into their position and get a chance to shine. And all of a sudden, you know, there's somebody that'll emerge out of these training camps that nobody's even talking about right now. So you want to be on top of your game and know these things, so that when you draft, you have the upper hand and know what's happening.
That's right.
Slim, any comment on Josh Gordon right now? Like, does this worry you or anything as far as moving forward?
Well, the report, for those that I guess maybe haven't been on social media or anything, was that he was he just didn't want to be a part of Hard Knocks. And if that's actually the case, that doesn't worry me honestly at all. In fact, I kind of applaud him for that, because I don't blame players for not wanting to be around probably a circus that something like that can be. And especially probably a player like Gordon, or just a person like Gordon that is had the battles off the field that he can probably continues obviously to battle. Distractions like that, or just having maybe to answer extra questions or whatever about that, or having cameras following him around all the time. It's probably just like, you know what, it's not worth it. So what? All right, I'm gonna out. I saw a video or pictures on Twitter that apparently he's down in Florida. He's still training. It was him on a football field down there working out and stuff. And of course he was tarps off, looking jacked as you know what. And that's like always, but so I don't know if that's the real story, then no, that doesn't really worry me at all.
And not to worry about him, like Blister was saying about the rhythm with the quarterback. He's got 2 new guys under center over there, and he's just a freak, and he'll figure it out.
Yeah, I mean, I think maybe there's something. Obviously, that would be a bigger or some type of an issue. But I mean, if he honestly thinks that the pressure or the stress or something like that would potentially cause him to do something dumb, I'm sure if I was the Browns, I would rather him be out of there and work through those kinks through the first couple of weeks of the season than potentially have him miss the entire season or longer. So, I mean, it's a preseason game. I don't know when he'll plan on coming back, but maybe it's not even for the full preseason. I mean, he's probably not going to play a lot in those games anyway. Obviously, the practice time would be more important, but I mean, we'll see how much time he actually does miss. I don't know. I'm not sure what's going to happen here. Definitely a different kind of story. We don't get this kind of stuff every day.
Yeah, absolutely. So, okay, just to wrap up, Blister, name one thing you're doing right now to get ready for your auction drafts.
Oh, mocking. I mocked today. I updated my mocks. I always keep the data on them, but I don't have this recent data in front of me. And I just updated my ranks while we were on the air tonight. And I will be gathering and reading information about training camp, watching NFL Network, and just soaking it all in.
I love that you updated your ranks during the pod. That's wicked. So what about you? What do you do? What's one thing you're doing right now?
Mocking, just like Blister said, gathering all that data. Just, I'm kind of probably a lot like Blister. A lot of NFL Network, a lot of Twitter. I'm sure my wife would fucking hate to hear that, but she goes back to work tomorrow. So, hey kids, come play with me in the living room floor, and we'll just have the NFL Network on in the background. But yeah, that's right. Just gathering of data. I'm not building my tiers yet. I actually get working on the next podcast in the series. I'm going to do one on different types of league formats. So it's going to be about Superflex 2 QB leagues, keeper leagues, tight end premium, stuff like that. So how to approach those in an auction. So I'm kind of working on that. Hopefully that'll be out later on this week. And that's about it.
So I'm going to show Blister here over the next week how to do that as well. So if he wants to put out some premium stuff for the members, he can do it that way. Right? Hey, Blister, you should be able to handle that, eh, buddy?
Muted. Uh-oh, maybe not.
Uh-oh.
Say yeah.
Maybe not. Well,
if I can
whatever,
do it,
I'll tell you one thing. Yeah, that's right. One thing that I'm doing, which I have the brother-in-laws in, and I'm in a dynasty with them. But the younger of the two young pups there, he's always he does a few snakes. He's always grilling me. Okay, so who are you taking at pick 3, and who are you doing? And I actually like the conversation because he's challenging me on guys I like or guys I don't like, and so it's helping me to either reinforce in my brain, no, that's a guy I hold in high value, or no, I think that this is the right way to construct a roster, or those types of things. So I kind of like having those conversations with them. And so right now, that's kind of some of the prep that I'm doing outside of just sitting on the deck when they're not looking and making my tiers.
Beautiful.
So, Blister, is he there?
Yeah, I'm still here.
No, oh, okay. Yeah. So, I'm going to teach. I just said I was going to teach you this week, maybe closer to the weekend, how to set up the premium podcast. So if you want to fire a few out there.
Yeah, I do. That'd be fun. That'd be good. Yeah, please do. Teach me. Teach me.
Awesome. And hopefully a couple of new articles or something coming out soon. Anyone got any ideas brewing?
Sure.
Sure. It's a secret. Oh, I like that. Mysterious articles, Blister. We have to send you back to work so we can get some articles out. Just kidding. Okay, what I'm going to do. I am going to go for a sauna. So I don't know when I'm going to see you guys, but I'm going to go grab a couple of cold ones and go sit in the sauna and jump in the lake.
Beautiful.
Have fun, man.
You guys all right with that?
Yeah. Good to go.
Okay, good. All right. So, anyways, Blister, I don't know, maybe I'm thinking about maybe trying to come in for golf because I got to do interviews on Thursday anyway. So maybe I'll do that.
Yeah. Let's go.
So maybe I'll see you guys both on the links.
Yeah, let's go.
All right. And for the rest of you, I'll see you when it's springtime in the Rockies.